All right, if you're doing volunteer work for a charitable organization, you may be able to deduct your unreimbursed expenses from your taxes. So we'll go over this spreadsheet that helps you to track the expenses so that you can deduct them. But first, we're going to back up a little bit and talk about what kind of expenses you can deduct and when you can deduct them. I'm Adam Steinfurth. This is sheetshelp.com. And let's talk about taxes. So this is the spreadsheet template that we have, and this is going to help substantiate your expenses is what it's called. That's going to help keep everything together. But let's back up one notch before we get into it too much and talk about when you should even think about doing this, when you might have the expenses, and if you do, how you deduct them. So there's a little link on the template. If you click on it, and it will bring you to this page where I've summarized everything. And we'll put this up on the screen. And these are some requirements that you need to meet before you can deduct them. So the first thing is that you have to itemize your expenses. So if you're not sure if you itemize, I'd recommend just keeping track of the expenses to see how large they are, because the decision to itemize is based on if your itemized deductions are larger than your standard deduction. So track these, see how big the amount is. When you go to do your taxes, then at that point, you'll decide if you do itemize. And the next thing is, when you're doing this volunteer work, it has to be for a qualified charity. So if it's a known charity, it's usually going to be a qualified charity. If it's a 501c3 charity, it would be. If you want to look it up, if you're not sure, you can use this link in the webpage, and it's a listing of all of the charities that will be qualified. And that just means that you can deduct your expenses for volunteering for them. So the expenses that you deduct have to be directly related to the work with the charity, and it can't be something that you also incurred personally. So it has to be because of the volunteer work, and you can't be reimbursed for it. Right? So if you turned in mileage to the charitable organization, they paid you for it, you can't also turn around and deduct it for your taxes. We're almost ready to look at the template, but to talk about a few things that are specified that you can't deduct, it would be child care while you're volunteering, cleaning your clothing, and food or drinks if you're not staying overnight. And some examples of things that you can deduct would be mileage to and from volunteer events. So that's a big one. We'll definitely cover that in this template. Supplies and materials, required uniforms, and meals and lodging if you're traveling overnight. So the link for this template is on the webpage that's in the description. I haven't had this YouTube channel long enough to put the links in the actual card that you can click on, so I have to go to the description. But from the webpage, then you can also get a copy of this template. And when you click on it, it will ask you to put a copy in your own Google Drive. So then you'll have your own copy. You can do whatever you want with it. And once you get to that point, then here you are. And we'll take a look at this. You can update the month, but the total, leave that as it is because it's formulas that will pick up the expenses, and we'll go down here and talk about these expenses. So in the general expenses category, which you can think of as everything except mileage, you can list everything you know about the expenses and even take a picture of the receipt, upload it to Google Drive, and put a link to that receipt here. So when you're done, the point of this template is that you have everything in one place, or at least it's pointing to everything in the case of the receipt. And if you do get audited, this template will help to substantiate your expenses. So you show the auditor, look, I tracked everything. Here it is. Here's the dates. Here's what was the expense that was incurred, and I even have the receipts. That's what you'll say because you'll use this template, and it'll be incredible. So I have an example here of getting a meal near a hotel. What you do is you put down the date, and this would be the date you incurred the expense. So this would be the date you actually sat down and ate. It's not the receipt date, although that's usually the same. And then the category. So we have a drop-down list here. You can choose where it fits in. We'll say that this one is food. And if you need to change anything in those categories, just go to the instructions. It's pulling from this list here. You can just type over those words if you need to. Add the description. the receipt that we already talked about, and the total. And the total should include things like taxes, maybe shipping if it's an item, anything on there that you paid on behalf of this volunteering activity should go in the amount. All right, so just put all of your expenses. I left some room here. And this would be everything except mileage. Okay, and list those different types of expenses here. This is the amount, so let's put in $1. We'll watch the total update is $24.43. Now it goes to 25. So these formulas are live. And now we'll go down and we'll talk about how the mileage works. So we'll scroll down. And this mileage template is built so that you again put in the date, and this is the date that you actually did the driving. And you put the starting address and the ending address, and this helps in your record keeping so you can kind of recall where you were going, and then the distance. So if you just have a few of these, you can take those addresses, go to Google Maps, look up the driving distance, type it in here. If you have a lot and you're doing this frequently, there's an add-in that you can check out called Triptally. So that's the link right here. And that will take a range of starting addresses and a range of ending addresses and automatically calculate the distance for you. So that will save a lot of time if you need it. And the last thing that's going on here with the mileage is that the amount is the distance, and it's miles instead of kilometers because we're in the United States, so we'll have to deal with miles. It's the distance times the IRS mileage reimbursement rate. So right now, this is 14 cents per mile for volunteering. So keep in mind, it's a lot lower than the business reimbursement rate. The business mileage is adjusted for inflation on a regular basis. Volunteer miles have not been in a long time. So they're probably still 14 cents per mile when you're watching this. But use this link to check it out and make sure. So if you go to the IRS site, they do have this table. And you can see that charitable miles have been 14 cents for quite a long time. All right, and so when you get a total here, the total is in cell D3. When you do your taxes after the end of the year, you can plug that into your tax software, and that'll be one of the items that it considers to determine whether or not you itemize your deductions. And if you want to see more about that distance calculator, I'll see you in this next video where we're going to walk through how to use that.